Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
I am Christy Hodge, one of the coordinators for Open Arms Youth Homeless Demonstration Program.
Okay, and what's your role as far as the coordinators?
My role is to support youth ages 18 to 24 experiencing homelessness and, provide them with the much needed services and support.
Okay. And what is the mission of Open Arms?
The mission of Open Arms is to bring healing, hope, and help to children and their families in need of support, intervention, and prevention as a result of child abuse and homelessness.
I'm just going to give kudos. She just memorized our mission statement. Okay. How did Open Arms initially get started?
Open Arms initially got started in 1991 as a result of a child experiencing abuse, and there is no healthy environment for him to return to, and therefore Open Arms birthed the Bridge servicing adolescents.
Okay, and then working with that mission and everything that it started with, what does that mean to you? How does it resonate with you personally?
Personally, it resonates with me. I can go back to my childhood upbringing, that I had several friends that wasn't as fortunate as myself, but in the community, we pulled together, giving them the much needed support. Mom was, faced with waves after waves, but however, my childhood friend, I saw her resilience, but there was much needed support that mom needed because the externals that the child was going through was beyond her control. So from that experience birthed my passion to help one another.
Awesome. And what we want to, as far as Open Arms, what are some of the specific services that Open Arms and you provide to young people in Dougherty County?
Okay. Youth and young adults that come in from the age of 18 to 24 come in seeking housing primarily. But however, there are some barriers that they have before obtaining stable home housing. Transportation may be an issue. Social may be an issue. We partner with agencies to give them much needed practices, to give them, survival skills and strategies to cope when they're alone. Even with that, employment is something that we partner with outside agencies to make sure that youth has much needed income.
And you said barriers. What are the, top 3 barriers that young people may be facing here in our community?
A sense of belonging. So that would be the social aspect. Knowing that some of the things that they don't possess physically, mentally, all domains, they know that they're lacking some things. But however, a sense of self-awareness is an issue for a lot of them. So coming in, not knowing that they can advocate for themselves is a challenge within itself. So we try to do outreaching to bring them in. So therefore, not knowing where we are, they are able to come in to build a rapport with them to bring them in. So self-awareness is a challenge for a lot of them.
And I heard you say outreaching. So what does that entail?
Well, we have the tendency to go into hot spots, some of the parks. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you find youth near the library because they're able to, tackle some of those barriers, hey, if I'm looking for a job, mm-hmm. the library is a good partner for us to allow them to use their services to get their needs met during the daytime. So that's one of the places that we go to, if it's hygiene products that we're giving them. Mm-hmm. We do have conversation with them to see what some of their needs are, so that help us to better service them. A lot of them, a meal or a snack. So we have to be mindful, to make sure that we're being a service to them versus a disservice.
Awesome. So can you walk us through what it looks like when someone walks in for help towards Open Arms or to your building, what it looks like when they walk in, the process?
Okay, the process, like I said, a lot of times we meet them at outreach centers.
Okay.
We partner with various youth groups or services, then that's where we'll find a lot of those individuals. A lot of them will call, or someone will call on their behalf to arrange a time for intake. We schedule an appointment, and that appointment is called motivational intake.
Okay.
During that time, you have conversation with them. They're able to share their lived experience, and we'll go from there and see what the needs assessments are for that individual. Typically, we have in our mind what services may look for them, but however, we're able to base it on their readiness, and that's how we're able to, maintain the success level of everyone.
And I heard you say somebody could call in on their behalf, so young people can come in themselves. But some of the different people that call in, who would that particularly anybody call, or is it a specific agency or?
Anybody, because like I said, a lot of them don't know that they can self-advocate for themselves. We partner with faith-based organizations where someone may see from the outside that there are symptoms that the individual is experiencing homelessness. There may be a school that has an individual. School counselors are the biggest advocates.
Okay.
Advocate for some individuals. Then a lot of times a workplace may notice that there's individual youth that is experiencing homelessness. Okay. So, we're all reporters. We're all, the community.
Awesome. And I know there's a lot of young people that come in for services. So how do you determine who's eligible and who's not eligible?
Okay, like I said, we are based on homelessness. We verify if they're homelessness. First and foremost, the first category that we acknowledge those that are on the street, literally on the street, sleeping in the parks, dwelling in a place that's not meant for living, a car, a shed, a dilapidated building that's not fit for living. Mm-hmm. So that will be one of the categories that we most definitely address. Those that are fleeing, trafficking individuals, we try to be a safe haven for them as well. And there again, the third category, an individual that has a minimum of 14 days that they are in the process of being evicted.
Okay. And with that, with your population that comes in, especially for Dougherty County, what is the bulk of those that are in need? Because with those different categories, who presents the most often?
Sad to say, you have a large percentage of our youth that are actually on the street. If I may say, we say that that's the population that don't want to listen, but that's a population that don't want to be listened. Adults don't want to listen to.
Awesome.
So a lot of times existing in both worlds, switching from being the dependent to independent, there's a large percentage of those individuals on the streets.
Wow. Okay. And so with those individuals that are on the streets or those that are escaping those situations, what do you see as some of the common needs that they're presenting with outside of needing a sense of belonging? So maybe some of those physical needs, some of those emotional needs that either you or other community partners can provide?
I see most recently normalizing mental health awareness. It is so I'm comfortable in the space that I'm in for now, acknowledging that this is where I am currently, but however, being in a safe space where I can advocate for myself moving forward. So I can see that mental health is a services that is most definitely prevalent during this time for adolescents between 18 and 24.
And I heard you said advocating for themselves. Is that a skill that you all provide for those young people on how to advocate for themselves?
Coming in, what I like most about the motivational intake, it affords them to share their lived experience so that they can be heard, even interpreting the silence. Wow. It allows me to reflect and see what it is that they're not saying. So I'm able to pick up on visual cues and things of that nature. Whatever they're not saying in that moment, I give them encouraging words, but then I don't want to make the session about me. But however, I give them a list of resources. So, and like I said, it's all about readiness. So they can only measure their success by their readiness versus something being forced. So we would then go from that and refer them if need be. And even sometimes with the level of empathy, we may accompany them to said appointments.
And I heard you use the word readiness. How do with the young people coming in, how do you get them to that point of being ready? And how long does that process typically take? How many times do they come in, or you engage with them to get them there?
I would say with that population that I said we service that are on the streets, some have returned multiple times. There's a such thing as chronic homelessness. So maybe the first time that I came into care or I partnered with you, the rapport wasn't solid. So sometimes at time after time, where the basic needs were met, but how it's going back to the mental health aspect, that readiness. So, you can be functioning to a level that you're just existing, but you're not living.
Wow.
So,
And so I know you all have staff that practice that, but what advice would you give to other community members or other adults that are encountering young people on helping them to be ready to exit the streets? What advice would you give to them on assisting young people as far as getting them to that place so they can get help?
Okay. I like to say with like a restaurant.
Okay.
You give them your brochure, which is like in the restaurant is your menu. You share with them what services that you provide. Okay. You let them present their order. Mm-hmm. And from that, it's accountability on both ends.
Okay.
And you're working parallel with the individual, and they build from there.
So letting them take the lead, pretty much, and guiding them towards where they need to be. Awesome. So, how long have you been with Open Arms?
I've been with Open Arms off and on maybe 15 years.
Wow. Okay. And over time, have you seen there have been a change in the need for services?
Yes, there have most definitely been changes with the services because times are changing. Mm-hmm. Where it is the community was plentiful at one time. I would say society was more nourishing and compassionate. Mm. So, there has been some significant changes. There are services, but there needs to be much more communication.
Okay.
Communication.
From agencies to youth or communication? Can you describe what that looks like?
Yes. From agencies to youth and from individuals with lived experiences to services from agencies. So
when you say lived experience, you mean like adults that have experienced homelessness or youth that have experienced homelessness?
Both.
Okay.
So there again, back with that brochure of the menu. If you offer me something out the kindness of your heart, but it does not speak to my need, have I been serviced? Mm-hmm. So you have to afford the opportunity and the space for them to share with you what it is that I can benefit from what you have to offer.
Awesome. And I know 15 years you probably encountered a lot of youth. Okay. So could you mind sharing a success story or the story that resonates most with you in your work with young people?
Okay. I would say I encountered a young lady that most would say she had a promising future. But I would say life happened where it is where she was residing. She no longer had funding to stay where she was. This young lady became pregnant. And with the foundation that she had, she was able to maintain her hope and her faith. But during her alone times, her mind began to wander. But with the much needed support from the community that rallied around her with open arms and compassion, she was able to not lose sight of her dream or her vision. this individual is now, still in school, has 2 jobs, 1 full-time job, and she has, would like to say, her own personal business as well. I want to say she's a peer mentor.
Okay.
Because in her spare time, she's speaking with others about her lived experience as well as her lived triumphs.
Wow. And why did that story resonate so much with you?
Well, I wouldn't say that I was a single mom, nor would I say I was displaced. But I would say I was temporarily out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So, but seeing her drive, watching her not process others' no,
mm-hmm.
but she took those no's as more ambition, ammunition to propel her to the next level. So, but I saw a lot of myself in her, where it is, those no's. You can't stop. You couldn't stop. It was man's no, but it was somebody else's yes.
Awesome. And in serving young people, I know there are a lot of partners that play their role. So what community partners and relationships do you rely on to help these young people?
There again, I say we have a holistic approach in servicing youth. So we do reach out to a lot of faith-based projects and agencies, churches. We use a lot of mental health advocacy centers, such as, I would say, Aspire, behavioral health. Sometimes, and there again, there are some, the school counselors are good. And when it comes to housing, we use Albany Housing Authority, Oaks in town.
Okay.
Other apartment complex are willing participants when it comes to housing our youth, willing to give them a chance.
Okay.
We use for transportation, our transit site. Yeah.
And with that, in closing, with youth on the streets or youth that may be going through something right now, what piece of advice or encouragement can you provide to them that might be in a storm, like in this moment, that may be watching this and need something, a boost, some motivation?
Okay. If I was to encounter a youth at this moment, I would encourage them to seek help. Being strong is not always the most glamorous thing. Seeking help can be the most beautiful thing, to get support. We're located 603 Pine Avenue. Mm-hmm. If anyone is in the need of service, call 229-431-1121. Someone is waiting for you.